Right, so I think we'll get going. So thanks to everyone who's joined our live webinar. We're excited to give some updates on the company and the projects. If you do have any questions during the webinar, please just type those into the chat box and we'll get those answered at the end. I'd also like to introduce my colleague, Gareth Garlick. He's Fortune Bay's Technical Director and he's going to help present today. So we will be making some forward-looking statements. If you'd like to review those in detail, please go to our website. They're available there, as well as on our corporate presentation, also available on our website. So today's webinar, we're going to be about 20 minutes or so, but we're going to focus in on Goldfields, where we announced this morning a study, a project development roadmap study that we've just initiated, working with Fuse advisors on that. We're also going to talk about Mexico, our project in the Chiapas state, where we have started community engagement toward access agreements with a view to commencing field work on that project next year. And then Garrett's going to run through Murmac. We're going to talk about the summer drilling, the exciting uranium assays we got, and the planning for a winter program, and then wrap up with the Q&A. So the Goldfields project, where we're advancing potential for Saskatchewan's next gold mine. Just shown in the picture is that historical head frame and the mill frame, as well as that power line that runs to site. And this is sitting right on the deposit itself. It runs along strike for about 850 meters, all in outcrop, and exposed a nice, really nice open pit scenario for that deposit. So just to recap on Goldfields and some of the key attributes for the project, it's got established infrastructure and access, and that's in a historical mining area. There's a road from Uranium City to site. There's a hydro power line to site. The regional access is obtained through the winter ice road that's maintained by the government, as well as summer barge access. There's a large airport at Uranium City as well. And being just within 13 kilometers of Uranium City, it's an ideal hub for a future mine development with a number of civil contractors based there and a lot of heavy machinery. So ideally poised from an infrastructure point of view. Our de-risked mineral resources, we have around 1.2 million ounces in open pit constrained resources. 82% of those are in the indicated category, the remainder in the inferred. And that's, if you look across to the figure there, just showing the breakdown of the resources between the Box and Athona deposits. Box making up about 80% of the total resources. Why we say they're de-risked is that the PEA utilized 99% indicated resources. In other words, there's really no additional drilling needed to convert those indicated resources into reserves at a PFS or FS stage. So de-risked from the confidence of the resources, but also de-risked from the mineral resource estimate, whereby there's been a little bit of historical underground production at the Box mine, and our mineral resource estimate reconciles to within 1% of that historical production, providing us with additional confidence in that estimate. The PEA envisage a very simple mining and processing operation. It's conventional open pit, all on land with the appropriate buffers to any water bodies, a low strip ratio of 3:1 across both deposits. You'll be hard pressed to find a better strip ratio amongst gold projects in Canada. Very simple mineralogy, just free gold with very little to no deleterious elements, which lends itself to a standard free milling flow sheet with a 95.3% recovery, with the potential to improve upon that with some additional metallurgical test work. The permitting is well advanced in the sense we have an approved environmental impact statement from 2008 that was approved by the provincial government, also reviewed by the federal government, for a Box open pit mine at the Box deposit and a 5,000 ton per day mill. That remains valid today, and we can utilize that to shorten the time frame toward production. Obviously, with that approved EAIS comes a large repository of baseline data, which will help streamline the path on the permitting side. There's the potential to amend that permit in an enlarged production case that could include a thoner and a different flow sheet. And that can be done through amendment to the permit itself or updating the EIS with additional baseline data. And then, of course, on the exploration side, both Box and Athona remain open. Both those deposits' ability to add resources there, as well as from more advanced prospects like Frontier and Golden Pond, where there's some nice high-grade intercepts and more drilling required to add to the project resources. In terms of the 2022 PEA sensitivities and the economics around the project, a robust set of economics across different gold prices. What's probably most relevant today is our upside case, which was at a gold price of $1,950 an ounce. You'll see today a number of companies running base cases at PEA, PFS, or FS level using a $1,950 an ounce gold price, or even higher at around $2,000 an ounce. So that really reflects where we are economically, with the project providing an after-tax NPV of around 460 million Canadian, an after-tax IRR of just over 50% and a 1.3-year payback. So a very attractive set of economics, and obviously the scope to improve upon that with a PFS or FS study, given that the project has a high sensitivity to gold price, and obviously we're sitting around $2,600 an ounce today. So a very compelling case to move this project forward. Also, given the low capex at around $234 million, a very competitive all-in sustaining cost of $889 an ounce. That's obviously from the 2022 PEA, so some updates will be required. And the PEA envisaged just over 100,000 ounces average per year of mine production, with around an average of 122,000 ounces a year coming in years 1 to 4. So we announced this morning a study that's being undertaken for the project by Fuse Advisors, where we'll be defining a project development roadmap. And the real objective is to define the optimal path to production, integrating both the permitting aspects as well as engineering aspects for the project. And this study will build upon the 2022 PEA and the approved 2008 EIS. It will also develop a detailed plan and budget for advancing the project into development, whether that be at a pre-feasibility level or directly to a feasibility level. And the study is going to take around 2 months to complete, and we look forward to reporting on results for that study when it becomes available. We've decided to work with Fuse Advisors after talking to various firms. Fuse specialize in these types of integrated studies, where we have both permitting and engineering aspects to sort of couple and optimize a path for the project forward. They have direct experience in Saskatchewan, particularly on the permitting side, which is very useful for our project, and a record of successfully advancing other leading Canadian gold projects. To just put into perspective what the study is trying to achieve, and here we just see a summary of all the components of the project that we'll be using to move it forward. The project has a large historical data set, and that comes from a 2008 feasibility for the Box deposit that was done by the previous owner, a 2011 pre-feasibility study done by Brigus Gold, all which have provided a lot of technical data that can still be used today to advance the project. So in a good position with the amount of technical data we have. Also from that approved 2008 EIS, a significant amount of baseline data that can be used and updated upon to move the project forward. The current status of the project is an updated mineral resource estimate, which was done by SRK. That was on the back of some drilling Fortune Bay completed, where we did expand the deposit and complete an open pit constrained resource with a strong geological model. That's something that wasn't incorporated in previous studies. So that's improved our understanding of the deposit, but also given us greater confidence in the resource estimate and exactly where the gold is located, and allows for more detailed planning around different mining scenarios. The updated MRE was used by Senko to conclude the 2002 PEA, which I've just summarized. So the study today will incorporate all these data sets and produce a project development roadmap. And that really is an providing the optimal path to construction and production. That study is going to incorporate different cases for mine design, flow sheets, and different cases for throughput. And we'll also look at different permitting scenarios, all bringing that together to determine how best to move the project forward from a permitting and engineering standpoint. It will build upon the 2002 PEA and the 2008 EIS, and will leverage all that historical data sets, both from the technical side and environmental side. That will be able to advance the project to the next stages of engineering and design, be that a pre-feasibility study or possibly even directly to a feasibility study. It will also give us guidance on the permitting side, where we need to update and add baseline data to the existing data sets, from which we can move onward to the updated environmental approvals for the project, which would be done in step with pre-feas or feasibility. On the duty to consult side, things have changed quite significantly over the last 10 years or so, where there's a greater onus on the proponent, being the company, to consult with community groups. And we've certainly done that at Fortune Bay. When we started working the project in 2021, we started building a relationship with those communities. That was all formalized in late 2022, shortly after the PEA was concluded, in an exploration agreement, which provides consent for all exploration activities and development activities up to and including a feasibility study. That exploration agreement will then be moved forward through engagement consultation during the PFS, FS stages toward an RBA. And that's an impact benefit agreement, which will outline the impacts and benefits to the communities at a mining stage. And that can all be completed and needs to be completed prior to construction and production. So stepping away from Goldfields and moving down to our project in Mexico, it's Ixhuatán. It's located in the northern part of Chiapas state, which is southern Mexico, between the capitals of Villahermosa and Tuxtla Gutiérrez. And it's really a project with top-tier gold potential, and really excited to be moving that ahead, given the outlook for gold as well as copper. Most recently, we've started community engagement, and I was down in Mexico a few weeks ago to start that community engagement plan. And it's really a three-step process, as shown on the left here. The first part is engagement with new leadership. During October, there were a number of elections across the project area, both at the community and at the municipal level, and there's new leadership in place. Those leaders invited us down. There's a sincere interest to see work started at the project again. And so I went down on their invitation and met with leaders at both the municipal and community level. We had a successful round of meetings, and a follow-up trip is planned in December 2004, where we'll also attend the inauguration of the governor of Chiapas and establish links with different levels of government and those meetings. The next stages would then be moving to negotiation of an access agreement, talking with the communities, establish something that is reasonable and fair, whereby we can access the project. In Mexico and at Chiapas, the surface rights are held by the community, so one does need to get their consent before going onto the project and doing exploration work. So that's what these access agreements really entail. And we envisage, if everything goes to plan, executing on those access agreements in Q1 or early Q2 next year, and then with the ability to commence work shortly afterwards. To explain why we're so excited about this project and want to unlock the value that's there, is that it's truly in a world-class geological setting. If we look at this map of North and the northern part of South America, these large porphyry systems all relate to the subduction of these aseismic ridges or these oceanic plateaus. And we can see those at Bingham Canyon, at Cobra Panama, and Cascabel, where there's been these ridges or oceanic plateaus pushed beneath the continental plates, giving rise to these very large porphyry systems. If we look at Bingham Canyon, that relates to this Mendocino fracture zone. It's an aseismic ridge that gets pushed beneath the North American plates. And if we scan down that western seaboard of North America and look for the next big aseismic ridge, here we see it at the Ixhuatán Ridge, which is giving rise to the porphyry system that sits below Ixhuatán. And just for verification of that, we see the regional magnetics for Chiapas, and this big bullseye anomaly here is where Ixhuatán sits. At Ixhuatán, the historical exploration has really been gold focused in what we call the lithocap. So it's the thin reactive cover rocks that sit above that porphyry system. And all the initial drilling was done based on soil results, which produced the discovery of the Campamento deposit. It's 1.7 million ounces across the categories. There's a lot of additional targets in that lithocap zone that warrant further exploration. And if we look across the schematic here, this just illustrates that lithocap zone in blue there, where the historical drilling targeted soil anomalies. The Campamento deposit was found. Numerous other target zones have been found with compelling grades. But what hasn't been tested, and really the sleeping giant here, is this intrusive porphyry complex that sits just beneath the lithocap. In a few places, it actually does daylight. But we see a lot of copper and moly anomalies on surface, which presumably leakage from this porphyry system, indicating a very fertile system. There are some deeper holes in the project, like at Cerro Lamina, which drilled a 600-meter hole at a 0.8% copper equivalent, starting from surface and ending in mineralization. A really exciting hole, and just speaks to the potential here to reach a meaningful copper discovery with additional drilling, in addition to exploring that lithocap for further silver gold or gold silver epithermal deposits. Moving back to Saskatchewan on our uranium projects, Fortune Bay has put together a package of exploration projects on that very underexplored northern rim of the Athabasca Basin. We have around 60,000 hectares. Two of the more advanced projects where we completed some initial work have gone into an option agreement with Aero Energy, where work is actively ongoing. We've also generated another 5 projects called the Woods projects to the east of that. They're located around this major crustal structure called the Grease River Shear Zone, just north of the Athabasca Basin. There's a large uranium endowment along that shear zone, including the highest stream sediment uranium anomalies in Saskatchewan. It's a very exciting package, which we're looking to advance, likely through option agreement. Just moving toward the work that was done on Murmac, and just recapping on that option agreement, that's with Aero Energy, where they have the ability to earn up to 70% interest in the project by spending $6 million, providing shares of $2.15 million and cash of $1.35 million. They have completed year 1 of that option agreement, spending in excess of the required $1 million, and we are now moving to the second year. Aero has announced a financing of $2.5 million to fund the winter program and potentially into some of the summer program for next year. So we look forward to working with them on that again, and obviously had some exciting results, which Gareth will touch on. Aero's they very well experienced uranium explorers. Galen, the CEO, was involved in the Arrow discovery and delineation, and then Garrett worked alongside him as NextGen's VPX, and was also involved prior to that with the discovery of Triple R. So an experienced team coming together, working with them, and we're really excited by the potential to reach a meaningful discovery on those projects. I'll hand over to Gareth.
Yeah, hi everyone. So the figure here shows our drill hole locations from our summer 2024 program and provides a summary of the results that are available to date. Our our first hole, 2416A, was actually a follow-up of some encouraging results from 2 of our 2022 drill holes, numbers 13 and 14. And it was also following up on some good historical results from SMDC drilling in 1980 on the Pitch Vein corridor. So the point of this hole was to step back and target the graphitic unit between these two locations, and also to test a major northeast-southwest structure that passed right by the location. So as you can see in the results, we didn't get what we were hoping for, but there is definitely a sniff here and there. So it does appear as though there is some sort of larger pervasive mineralizing system at this location. And moving on from there, we went across to our second hole, 2417. So this hole targeted the intersection of a uranium-bearing cross-fault with the Howland conductor. And this was where we hit our most significant intercept to date with 0.3% U3O8 over 8.4 meters. Nice and shallow with some very high grades of up to 13.8% in shorter individual samples. So because of this result, we immediately changed up our planned drill program to include more follow-up at this location. And we drilled another 3 holes here, including a steeper down dip hole from the same pad, and then 50-meter step outs to the northeast and southwest. So 2 of those holes, 18 and 19, both intersected elevated uranium in the graphitic unit. And we're still waiting for the results from hole 20, but there was a sniff of elevated radioactivity in the graphitic unit in that hole. So we're expecting a similar result from that. The remaining drill holes 21 to 23 continue testing targets, and we should have the results for these in the very near future. But if we move on to the next slide, I'll talk a bit more about this hole 17 and why we're so encouraged by this specific result. The core box photo below shows the entire mineralized intercept from that hole 17. From the top down, it starts with that reddish brown unit. It's a hematized quartzite, really hard, resistant rock with intermittent mineralization up to 1.3%. That then transitions into the underlying darker rock, which is a really soft, heavily faulted and fractured, very graphitic peelite. And we mentioned some of the highlight assays, but what's actually interesting here, and you can see it if you look closely at the core boxes, at the red number, the red marker pen numbering written on the boxes under the core, that number is radioactivity in counts per second. That entire 8.4 meter intercept is continuously elevated throughout. Sure, there are some individual much higher elevations, but what it does show is a pervasive hydrothermal mineralizing system interacting with this entire intercept directly at the competency contrast between harder overlying rocks and underlying heavily structured graphitic rocks. And why this is interesting is that the historical exploration in this area all focused on beaver-lodge type mineralization. That is fault-hosted uranium in quite resistant granitoid rocks. And the exploration was all driven by surface prospecting with handheld scintillometers. So in the historical exploration, there are no continuous intercepts of mineralization within graphitic rocks in Murmac. So we have found a small example of exactly what we're looking for and targeting on this project, and prove that our exploration approach here is valid. And this is something that wouldn't have been found or targeted during historical exploration. If we can jump onto the next slide, I'll summarize why that is. So our exploration target in Murmac, again, we're not looking for beaver-lodge type mineralization here. We're looking for these higher grade unconformity associated deposits, and specifically the basement hosted portion of that, like Triple R and Eagle Point. This type of mineralization can extend for hundreds of meters and up to 1 kilometer into the basement. At Triple R and Eagle Point, the overlying Athabasca sandstone has been weathered and stripped off, and the deposit's subsequently been covered by overburden and till. And this is exactly what we're looking for at Murmac. These softer graphitic units bound on either side by more competent rocks have been scoured off and negatively weathered to produce very steep-sided valleys that are infilled with overburden and shallow lakes. So prospecting over these with a handheld scintillometer just wouldn't have worked for finding a deposit underneath overburden. So this leaves us with over 30 kilometers of strike length of these graphitic rocks that haven't been properly explored during historical work. And another point about these deposits is that they form in lenses that are irregular, and they very frequently swell and pinch, and they form intermittent pods of mineralization that are not necessarily continuous. So the fact that we didn't get what we were looking for with 50-meter step outs from hole 17 at Howland absolutely does not downgrade this location, and we're very excited about more follow-up there. And moving on to that on the next slide, in terms of plans for 2025, of course, anything we end up doing is subject to the fundraising that Dale mentioned and finalizing an exact scope of work in collaboration with Aero. But at the moment, we are planning on doing a radon gas survey in Howland Lake early in winter. And then we'll use the results of that to position step-out holes along that conductor unit. There's about 1 kilometer of completely untested conductor under that shallow Howland Lake, and we'd like to properly test the along strike extents of that in both directions along strike with a combination of, or with either targeted step-outs to test radon anomalies, and also, if necessary, systematic step-outs to ensure that we're not missing anything there. So our winter program will be focused on Howland to follow up in hole 17. And we need to do that work in winter, firstly, because we're really excited about it and want to get to it first, but also because further step outs there need to be drilled from the ice, right? We need to get off land and drill onto ice to get underneath the water there. And then the obvious to do moving forward in summer will be to look to carry on with our testing of the around 40 prioritized geophysical, structural, and geological targets that we still have to test at Murmac, some of which we were hoping to test in 2024 before we got diverted into focusing on Howland. And then also from our recent VTEM survey, we have other conductor corridors identified, shown in green in the picture there. We're in the process of working these up for targeting. So yeah, there's still a lot to do and things to move forward here. I'll hand back to Dale.
Right, thanks, Gareth. So just wrapping up, Fortune Bay remains, very well positioned and diversified across a unique set of projects. We have, around 3 million ounces of gold, which is an enviable resource base for any junior company across our two gold projects, and the ability to unlock that value, which, we are doing through advancing Goldfields through this next study. And obviously the community engagement at Ixhuatán to create the ability to do work there in the near term. We have upside through partner-funded uranium exploration. That's being demonstrated through the work that Aero is doing, with us having the ability to retain a 30% interest in a meaningful discovery on those projects. With an experienced board and management team, we're aligned with shareholders with our insider ownership. And we have a tight capital structure with just around 49 million shares outstanding. Overall, we offer a really highly attractive valuation. Our market cap today around $12.5 million. And if you look at the portfolio of assets and the ability to unlock value here, I think we're very well positioned there to re-rate. I'd like to thank everyone for joining. And I'll now jump to the Q&A, if I can find it. Give me 1 second. See, we've got 3 questions here. Is there any company nearby who would realistically be likely to buy Goldfields to enhance their own projects? In that part of Saskatchewan, there's no other really advanced gold projects immediately in that area. There are obviously gold mining companies based in Saskatchewan, like SSR. But I think if we look across the Canadian gold landscape, there's very few good development projects, and they're becoming harder and harder to obtain. We've seen some M&A in the space where some of these sort of single asset companies are getting swallowed up into these sort of roll-ups. And so I think the time will come where there will be a lot of interest in acquiring a project like Goldfields, despite its location. What work is envisaged at Ixhuatán once access agreements are in place? Yeah, so we've been, over the last while, we've been looking carefully at the project, reviewing core, and there's clearly a lot to be done there. The next step would certainly be an airborne geophysical survey. There's really despite the discovery there's no modern high-resolution airborne data set for the project, and it would benefit immensely from a high-resolution VTEM survey that includes magnetics. The magnetics could be used to better define the structural controls on mineralization and pinpoint targeting areas. And the EM component of that could be used to image where the porphyry is potentially closer to surface. That could then also be coupled with an ambient noise tomography type survey that could also help image, showing where the porphyry is closer to surface and there could be some targets. Following on from an airborne survey, we'd want to complete the soil coverage. The drilling today is really based on the central portion of the project that's covered with soil sampling. It's that soil sampling grid's not throughout the whole project yet, so there could be some really nice obvious targets. We'd want to complete that soil coverage, and once that and the airborne geophysics is done, we'd be in a very good position to commence drilling, and that would really be on some of the targets we've already identified, plus new targets coming out of the soil sampling. Targeting that lithocap zone and expanding the gold resource base, and then obviously looking at some of those data sets to target deeper levels into that porphyry system with some deeper drill holes. I think there's one more question around Goldfields. Would Fortune Bay be looking to put Goldfields into production? Well, it's certainly a possibility for us as we move the project forward. One of the reasons for engaging with Fuse is that they can act as the owner's team, and we'd be well placed in the near term to work with them to advance the project through pre-feas or directly to feasibility study. Obviously, over time, we'd need to build an internal team that can undertake construction and production. So it's certainly a possibility, and obviously we'd look at the economics coming out of future scoping and that to see what direction that takes. While the project advances and there's news flow, there's certainly the ability for a transaction to happen as well. Over the last while, we have been approached by numerous companies who've had a look at Goldfields. There's a lot of interest, but some of the key things we've learned there is that firstly, a lot of companies are looking for a project where there's a path, there's a defined path, and they can see the timeline to production. They want to know exactly when they could produce. That obviously affects the NPV of a project. So having the study done with Fuse, where we can clearly map out the optimal path to production and provide some clarity around certainly some of the permitting aspects, I think that's going to be key to making the project even more attractive, as well as also de-risking some of the project elements through further study. As we've spoken to other parties, the questions come up, and sure, it's at a PEA level, and there are some things that need to be investigated in further detail. So there's certainly, in summary, there's certainly the possibility to take it into production, but also the possibility to transact as we de-risk this further and show a clear, or set this on a clear path to production. So I think that wraps it up. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining. And I see some more comments here. Thanks. So some more questions will follow sort of offline here. But thanks everyone for joining. Really good to speak and provide an update. We will provide these in future as material news comes out for the company. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day.